Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have a liftoff.
What's up, Doom Nation, and welcome back. You are listening to the Two Doom Men podcast. As always, it's Skaggs and the Captain. And what's going on today, buddy?
We are back for another episode. We got an interesting one for you today, folks. We were over the weekend watching Tucker Carlson doing his thing.
He's becoming a savage, man.
I mean, he already was a savage,
Yeah.
right? But So I was watching him over the weekend. He was hosting a forum in Iowa with the presidential candidates from the Republican Party. Not all of them. Trump wasn't there, but most of them. And it was hosted by The Blaze, I think, which is not tied to the old corporate press. They're like a conservative media outlet. So Tucker was heading this thing up, and things have changed. Let's just put it that way. Now the corporate press is not in control anymore of what we're going to talk about when we talk with presidential candidates. Things have changed, so we're going to talk about that. Go ahead, Cap. What were you trying to say?
Yeah, the old Q saying we are the news now. This is not going to go in favor of any establishment chills. That's for sure. Because they were never given hard answer, hard hitting questions. Right. And the funny thing that I find through all of this, and forget that I'm this biased MAGA domestic terrorist over here. The DNC doesn't want to have any debates this year or this coming election. They don't want to have any debates. I get it, Trump bad, you can't vote for Trump, whatever. But how is, a person that identifies as a Democrat going to just blindly go into the 2024 election with no debates, not into the primaries, not hearing anybody's stance, just blindly, I pick Biden,
Well, when you're trying to craft a base of NPCs, you're not interested in open debate. Like, they've made it well aware they're not for debate, whether it be with Biden and RFK and Marianne Williamson, or be it like RFK debating Dr. Peter Hotez on the vaccine stuff. Like, they don't support debate, right? Because debate's where they get exposed.
It's easy to say now that the left is anti-free speech.
Yeah, without a doubt.
They are.
So what we're gonna do, let me just plug my computer in here for 1 second before my battery dies. Sorry about that, folks. So what we're gonna do is we picked a clip from each GOP candidate that Tucker sat on the stage with there. And we're going to play them. So we're going to kind of have like our own GOP forum here in a sense. And we will comment on the clip of Tucker talking to them.
Basically a doomed review
of each candidate's response and whatnot. So I'll lay it out for you guys real quick. Now, Trump was not there, but I did get a clip of him on Saturday talking about the war in Ukraine. So that's going to be his topic. I got DeSantis. So just to preface this, a lot of this is on Ukraine. A lot of the clips I chose are on Ukraine, and I'm obviously biased. I think that's the most important issue in the world right now. So not only do I think it's the most important issue in the world, but I think it's also probably the only place you will see any disagreement between these candidates. Otherwise, every other issue, for the most part, they're almost exactly the same, on like the border or drugs or whatever. Like, they're all going to say kind of the same thing. So on Trump, I got Ukraine. On DeSantis, I got Ukraine. That's going to be a good one because he's been MIA on that. On Mike Pence, we got Ukraine. On Vivek Ramaswamy, we got January 6th. On Governor Asa Hutchinson, we got child transitioning. For Nikki Haley, we got the Nord Stream pipeline, which we did a whole episode on.
Yep.
And then for Tim Scott, we also got Ukraine. So we're going to go in order here, and I think we start with the
mean orange man.
Yeah, we'll start with the orange man who's bad, as they say. I don't know, dude. Before we do that, though, man, do you want to even comment on the fact that Trump didn't go to this? What do you think about that?
I'm okay.
Or that he won't debate. He doesn't seem to want to debate either, the rest of the candidates.
Let's hold off and see how that goes. I don't think Trump's gonna really back down in entirety for debates or anything like that. But I think it was better that Tucker interviewed all the other candidates, because if Trump shows up, it just becomes a MAGA rally all about him. You know what I mean? So this is a chance to get a good journalist in front of the other candidates to see what they have to offer. Exactly. And on top of it, I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if Tucker and Trump are working on some one-on-one interview that's, would destroy this whole, GOP debate to begin with.
Sure. So this is why I'm bringing him into this, because I feel like we're going to make up where he didn't go. Right. I personally don't like the idea of him not going. I think he should go. I'll take the opposite opinion. I understand probably why he's not at the moment deciding to participate in the debates, because he's got a gigantic lead on everybody else, and you don't want to like open yourself up to making a mistake, I guess, or something, or like legitimize the other candidates. I understand that gamesmanship politically, like I get what they're doing. I do think it's a mistake though, because Trump is by and large, maybe besides Vivek, way better than every other candidate, even by my judgment. And he's not going to be going up there just to make an argument for the GOP primary. He needs to win the general election. So in my opinion, he needs to go in every single opportunity and take it as, this isn't even me in the GOP primary. This is me running against Joe Biden. And if you want to claim that it's rigged and the whole system's against you and whatever, a lot of Trump people always says, what do you have to do? You have to overwin, right? Like we have to get people to overvote for us. That means, at least in my opinion, that means he's got to go out there every moment he possibly can. He lost ground. And try and, I'm not even going to say he lost ground within the GOP primary. He needs to treat all these things as another opportunity that he could talk to everybody. Like when he went on CNN and he was funny, and he made good points, and that like moved the needle a little bit in his favor. He needs to do every fucking opportunity of that he could get, in my opinion, including like Twitter Spaces, coming back onto Twitter in general. Like all of these things are my campaign like advice to Trump is you need to appeal yourself to everyone right now, not just the Republican base, because you need as many people possible to vote for you.
Funny how you're helping Trump's campaign and I'm over here writing speeches for Hunter Biden's return on election.
Man, hire us. We'll make some money off this shit finally. All right, so we'll start with the Orange Man, and he was on Fox News on I think Saturday night, something like that, and he's being interviewed, and they ask him about the war in Ukraine, and let's hear what he has to say. If you could hear this, Cap, let me know. Just he had some technical difficulties earlier. So
you said you could end the war in Ukraine in 24 hours.
Yes, I could.
How would you do that?
I know Zelensky very well. I felt he was very honorable, because when they asked him about the perfect phone call that I made, he said it was indeed he said it was, he didn't even know what they were talking about. He could have grandstanded, I felt threatened.
Well, that's not going to be enough for Putin to stop bombing Ukraine.
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that I know Zelensky very well, and I know Putin very well, even better. And I had a good relationship, very good, with both of them. I would tell Zelensky, no more. You got to make a deal. I would tell Putin, if you don't make a deal, we're going to give them a lot. We're going to give them more than they ever got if we have to. I will have the deal done in one day. One day.
You said you could end the war in Ukraine.
All right, so this is like kind of going viral right now on Twitter, and a lot of people are giving him shit because he's saying that I'm going to give Zelensky more.
You just the open-ended check that we're all complaining about from Biden.
Before I give my take, what do you think? Let's go with you first on this one.
I don't think it's a bad take, but the idea of if Putin pushes back, then we're theoretically right back to where we are today. We're just going to write another $1 trillion check, a $2 trillion check, a $3 trillion check, and send it on over there with all ammo and tanks and bombs that we can. So Ukraine could, absolutely destroy Russia. I don't think that's, a great option, but, the bias in me, I do believe Trump could strike a deal. Maybe not in 24 hours, but I do think Trump can strike a deal between Russia and Ukraine. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibilities.
Sure. I do think it's within the realm of possibilities. I like that we kind of get some meat and potatoes on what he even means by I could get this deal done in 24 hours. Now, see, I understand the criticism people are giving Trump of like we're going to give Ukraine more. But this sounds a lot like my argument of how you get the war done really quickly. And I think I said on previous podcasts, like, what do you actually do? I said, you tell Zelensky, like, hey, buddy, that's it. We're done. We're not giving you any more stuff. So you better come to the table. And then you go to Putin and you tell him the exact same thing. But you also tell him, if you don't come to the table, then we're not going to stop giving him stuff.
Yeah.
Now, it's me. I'm not running for president, right? So I'll share my little inside with you. Like, I'm not going to give Zelensky this stuff anyway, right? Like, at the end of the day.
Okay.
But in terms of like a negotiation tactic, like, let's deal in the real world here. You need to apply leverage to both parties.
Yeah.
And the leverage on Putin is we have all of the leverage in the war, the United States. We have it all because we're the only reason why Ukraine is still standing is because of us giving them stuff.
Yeah.
So if we stop giving them stuff, that means that Russia will win. If we don't, that means that Russia will continue in whatever is going on, like this quagmire that it's in. So you need to use that leverage correctly. So I will give Trump credit. This will get them to the table. Now, when you're at the table, all bets are off, and you actually at least got the guys talking. Now you could get into the details about who keeps what piece of land and future security guarantees and all of those things. But I actually think this is pretty in line with me. So I'm going to go out here and defend Trump on this one, that he seems to be using my strategic tactic here for negotiating with a former KGB agent and a comedian turned president over there put in the world.
At least they're looking for negotiations. Instead of the, nonstop war effort that these war hawks want.
Right. Exactly. So that was Trump. And like I said, again, he wasn't there. So now we'll get into the actual Iowa Blaze Media event here hosted by Tucker. And the next candidate is Ron DeSantis. Now,
Ron.
I've been very critical of Ron DeSantis on the Ukraine issue. You weren't here, Cap, for when I had Benji from Pilsners and Politics on, but that was kind of like one of the main thing we focused on. So as you guys might well know, I've said Ron's kind of like not existent or tiptoeing around the Ukraine question. He has been since he originally put out like a written statement to Tucker that was pretty good, saying like it's not in our interest to be involved in this. We should end the war, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then like the next day, he kind of like reversed track and called Putin a war criminal and all these things. So since then, he did a Twitter space. No one asked him. Curiously enough, no one asked Ron DeSantis about it.
Oh, shocking.
Right. Ron DeSantis was talking a lot about like the military being woke anytime like the topic kind of has come up. So it's like a non-answer. So this goes back to what we were saying before at the very beginning. This is amazing that now, if this was on Fox News, there would not be a DeSantis Ukraine question, right? Because corporate press is in the bucket for war. Yeah. They're in the bucket for war. But this is Tucker Carlson, right? So I'm sure at the forefront of Tucker Carlson's mind is the same thing at the forefront of my mind. Hey, buddy, what the fuck is your opinion on the war in Ukraine? Because you haven't basically said it in a long time. So this one's a little bit longer, and we'll let it play, and then we'll give our thoughts after, just like we did for the first one.
As president, you'd be in charge pretty much single-handedly of America's foreign policy. So with that in mind, I have to ask you about Ukraine. So in the spring, you described the war in Ukraine as a, quote, territorial dispute. You issued a statement saying it was a territorial dispute that was not central to America's national interest. There was an outcry over this, and then pretty soon after you seemed to change your view and describe Putin as a war criminal and say that it was central to America's foreign policy. Why did you change, and where are you now?
So the last part I did not say.
Pausing it right there. He did say
that. Yeah, I know. I was going to comment. That was the first thing I was going to comment when we started commenting on it. That's your typical politician. Oh, I didn't say that. I don't know what you're talking about. It's weird. It's weird in the day and age that we live in with Twitter and social media and just the lightning fast responses to anything that's said by anyone that upsets the general population. For DeSantis to be like, well, I never said that. Hold on. We could pull up a clip right now of you saying that.
With the internet now and the war zone that is Twitter, like we got the receipts, bro. Like you did say it. And look, like, you know, I think that was a dumb thing to even say. Again, like if you're gonna negotiate with the guy, and like you're gonna be now, like me, I've said that Vladimir Putin's a bad guy. He's a former KGB agent. I've said that many times on the show. But again, I'm not gonna be the president, so I can say whatever the fuck I want. But if you are gonna be the president and you're gonna have to go sit down at a table with this guy, perhaps we don't call him a war criminal in the war that we're trying to end. Right. So that was a dumb thing to say. To now say that you didn't say that when you did. We're already off to a really bad start here on DeSantis's answer.
Foundation of lies.
Yeah. Well, let's continue.
I served in Iraq during the Iraq campaign in Fallujah. I was attached to U.S. Navy SEAL Team 1. And remember, it started on what WMD. Then we had Al-Qaeda in Iraq. Then it was create a democracy. Then it was that. And so the lesson that I learned from there is if you're going to commit to do military, whether it's aid or whether it's troops, you need to have a concrete idea of what you're trying to achieve. And so from the time I got out of the sandbox and landed back in the United States 15 years ago until the present, I've always felt that. And so my critique of the DC foreign policy elite is that they are doing a blank check policy without telling us when we will have achieved our objective. And I believe that today, and I believe that then. Now, because you dissent from the DC foreign policy elite, they then try to smear you and say, oh, you must be for Putin. I've always thought Putin's a bad guy. I still think he's a bad guy. But that's a separate question for a leader who's got to look at the world in very clear-eyed glasses. You know that it's not all peaches and cream out there. And you have to make a judgment about what's in America's national interest. And so that's the position that I believe. And I also believe that I wish the DC elites cared as much about our border as they do about the Ukraine-Russia border. Because there's people pouring into this country. We have people dying from fentanyl overdose. The cartels are running the show. And what I've said is this is something on day one, declare a national emergency, mobilize all resources, including the military, stop the invasion, yes, build the wall, but most importantly, authorize the Border Patrol, authorize our military to deal with the cartels. If they're breaking into our country, bringing product, if I'm in charge, that's going to be the last thing they do because they're going to end up stone cold dead.
Stone cold stunner.
So what? We can just go back.
But
you got a great critique. So what is the goal?
So again, I'm going to point back to this is why things are different now.
Yeah.
Because what is your position on Ukraine? Because like that was the question, and you didn't answer it.
Yeah, you politically danced around it.
Yeah, he pivoted to the border, but now again, this is Tucker, and this is a new day. He's going to actually follow up here. Go ahead.
So let me comment on the first half before I get it. So yes, DeSantis, I've had my suspicions about him that he might be, controlled op. Still undecided on it yet. But he did say some interesting facts here. It's an open check policy with no clear agenda or end date. So right there, we've been saying this. This goes with what we've been saying. They're trying to turn Ukraine into another forever war, just so they could just keep writing checks, embezzle the money however the hell they're doing it, and just keep the war machine running so they could all make their extra millions and billions. And on top of it, another thing he said was that a leader needs to look at things, differently because it's not all peaches and cream. And I think a lot of the American population don't understand that. That's part of why I think everyone outside of all the media coverage and stuff of Trump didn't like Trump, because as a leader, I can't be friendly to everyone. I can't please everyone. I have to make decisions that I think are going to be best for the group as a whole, not the 1% transgendered pansexual, community that has really no say what goes on in Ukraine. I have to make a decision for the entire country. So I think that was something important for people to listen to.
Sure. I don't think he's wrong. Obviously, he kind of even says what I said before, like about calling Putin a war criminal, which he did say. Like you have to, like, and this is, like I say all the time on the show, like, and I'm an anarcho-capitalist. Like, I don't really even want to talk about Ancapistan because it doesn't matter right now, right? Like, we live in the real world and what's going on, what's important. Like, this is what's important. So I'm not going to talk about things that aren't important. But when you're gonna like negotiate with Putin, we need to live in the real world. Like, he's not a good guy, but let's not also like insult him if we're trying to get him to stop a war. You know what I mean? So like that's in a sense living in the real world. And if you're going to be the president, you're going to have to deal with monsters, right? Literally, you're going to have to. That is to do. You're going to have to go sit across the table from Xi Jinping, right? Who's another monster, or Kim Jong-un, or whoever, right? Or the leader of the Taliban, for example. Like, that's just the thing. We don't get to live in Ancapistan. They don't get to live in the peaceful world of transgenderism or whatever the fuck it is they think is about the real world. No, that's the reality of the situation, and you have to just deal with it. So I agree with that. He makes a good point there, although he kind of contradicts himself because he did call Putin a war criminal. But the fact that he's saying, and I agree with him as well, where he's saying that it's an open-ended check and there needs to be a objective, right? Isn't that what he said? Like, there needs to be a clear objective, not an open-ended check. Like in Iraq, there was no objective, right? And he's learned from his time there. I don't think that's true. I don't think he's learned anything, because all he's saying is, in my opinion, is, well, I'm going to continue the war, but I'm going to tell you what the objective is, though. Right? He still hasn't given us what his position is on the war in Ukraine. So I'll go more in depth because there's still a little bit of time here, and we'll let him explain the rest. But yeah.
Do you think in Ukraine, when do we know we've achieved it?
They will not define it. And
what do you think it should be?
I think the goal should be to have a sustainable peace in Europe. Okay, we don't want there to be war breaking out. There have been a lot of people that have been killed, displaced. It's a horrible thing. But you have to provide a articulation of where you're going to go to get there. And my fear is right now is they're basically doing an open-ended conflict. This is going to be a multi-year quagmire. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to die, and there's not going to be much facts changed on the ground. And the dispute at this point, or the war at this point, is not whether Ukraine's government is going to fall. They're fighting over territory on the far eastern part of the country between Russia and Ukraine. And that's kind of where this is at. So the question is, okay, how do you get that to where we can stop this? And also, from our national interest, this is humiliating for our country that we're running out of ammunition. They're now trying to mobilize troops, U.S. troops, to go to Europe when we have a major threat in the Indo-Pacific, the Chinese Communist Party, who they're basically given a free pass to. As president, I would prioritize the threats to our national security. The top threat to this country is China. It's China's ambitions, it's China's industrial capacity, it's the CCP's ability to pollute our culture, impact our universities. Incidentally, in Florida, we got rid of the Confucius Institutes that they put in universities. We cracked down on them being able to do research dollars to our universities, and we banned any purchase of land by the CCP in the state of Florida.
So given that
the thing, though, you have to do what's based on our interests. You can't subcontract out our interests to a foreign leader. You can't want it to go on because it'll be good for defense contractors or, globalist investors. It's all about what's in our interests. And I think we're basically in a situation with our foreign policy. We're providing a blanket security to Europe. They're not paying their fair share, and we're not doing what we need to do to project power in the Pacific. At the end of the day, the CCP respects hard power. And I'm concerned that because a strong America can deter conflict, I think a weak America may be on the path to inviting conflict with China. And if we continue to be weak abroad and allow our culture to deteriorate here at home, we can have a situation where our kids or grandkids are studying, memorizing 37 different pronouns in Mandarin, and we can't have that. So we've got to do better as a country. We need to reverse the decline of this country because it is happening very, very quickly.
So you inherit this mess a year and a half from now, say, and let's just say it's static. It's where it is right now. What do you do about it? Like, how do you act?
I love it. I'm going to pause it real quick. I love it because he's still he hasn't given us anything. He's pivoted to China is a threat. Like, he's actually pivoted to more war somehow, like war with another foreign power. Right.
This is why I'm suspicious, man.
Right. And he tries to a little bit go into like some of the woke stuff about the Confucius Institutes and things like that. But again, I just love this because, God damn it, Tucker Carlson ain't your average fucking journalist. He's still going to keep asking because he knows, just like I'm watching this, and he still hasn't answered my question. Right. So he's going to again ask him again.
Europe needs to do more. This is their backyard. We have NATO countries that don't produce support for their own defenses, and we're supposed to do it, and we're taking away weapons and ammo that could go to respond to contingencies overseas. So we would do more in terms of the Pacific, and the goal should be to bring it to a conclusion. You bring it to a conclusion in a way that's a sustainable peace and that doesn't reward aggression, and you have to be able to use different levers that you have. I mean, for example, one of the leverages I would use vis-a-vis Russia is I would do our own energy exploration and send it over to Europe so they don't have to rely on Putin. I would stop giving Iran a free pass like Biden.
I'm gonna pause it. That's the little bit. We only got like a minute left here. That's the only little bit of like nuance he actually injects here. He says, "What would I do to get a sustainable peace? I would give Europe energy so they don't have to rely on Putin. A sustainable peace means that Putin and Europe actually trade with. They also they trade with each other, right? Like the Nord Stream pipeline is a good thing because that means that Germany and Russia are dependent on each other for a thing that's not bullets flying over each other's heads, right? Like Germany needs Russia for gas and Russia needs Germany for money. Yep. And so long as they have a product and service to sell and buy each other, they're not going to go to war with each other, right? What he's saying is, no, we should sell them this stuff. He's actually somehow, while talking about peace and making things better between relationships better between Russia and Germany, he's actually advocating for the opposite. But he's telling you that that's what he's advocating for.
So he's basically in line with the global elite. You know what I mean? He's crafting this very carefully, but we're blowing it apart. You know, we're already talking about more war with China. So even if we resolve the war in Ukraine, we're going to go into another war with China, an even bigger, more expensive war. But on top of it, once again, you listen to Trump talk about this. Trump understands that you need to talk to Ukraine and Russia, to Voldemort and Putin.
Sauron.
And Sauron. But here, once again, we're only concerned about Ukraine and NATO nations. He's not, and he's saying, oh, the NATO nations don't put in their fair share, but he's not talking about how he's going to force them to pay their fair share either. You know, so it's still at the end of the day, he's on this Russia man bad thing.
He's very carefully tiptoeing around this, like he's done throughout his entire campaign, right? He's giving you a non-answer. He's also speaking in very general platitudes. We want a sustainable peace in Europe. Yeah, so does Joe Biden, right? Yeah. And that sustainable peace for Joe Biden looks like Putin dead and the American empire carving up Russia into whatever it wants. Now, at the end of the day, like, is that going to really affect me and you if that's what happened? No, but like, that's not the real world. Russia is not going to allow that to happen. That's how we end up in nuclear war. So he's tiptoeing around this like he constantly is doing. We'll let it wrap up. There's like a minute left and give a final thoughts on it.
Biden is, because they're funding Russia. So we have some ability to use this, but the goal should be we cannot have a quagmire that goes on for years and years. And seeing Biden put those troops there, I can tell you, we cannot have American troops in Ukraine. That is a total non-starter.
So why? I mean, you've got a whole Congress, and there are a ton of Republicans there. They claim they run the House. I haven't heard anybody say that. Why?
Well, no, I think some of them tried to say that there should be.
Yeah, they lost badly. I think they got 33 votes.
They did, but I'm just. Yeah. I think there are some people that said you need to define the mission before you're able to send any American tax dollars over. No, by the way, they haven't even been able to account for all this. So we don't know who's coming across the southern border. We don't know where all the money sent to Ukraine has gone. We don't know whose cocaine it was in the White House. I mean, when are we?
As president.
All right. So, all fair points Ron DeSantis makes. I'll add that. We don't know
they're
who's
carefully crafted, though.
Right. And we agree. We would both agree that the accounting here is awful.
Yeah.
Again, though, so what I take from this is that his main position is that there should be a clear goal behind. But
he's not going to give it.
But I'm not going to give you what
yeah.
that goal would be.
Yeah.
Right. So again, my opinion is, well, his goal is to continue the war, perhaps even escalate the war to the point maybe where you give Ukraine enough stuff and then they win. Right. Yeah. And then that's how you get your peace. If you don't come out against the war, then you're not against the war. I don't know how else to put it. And he really hasn't. So that's Ron DeSantis' take. It's not enough. This is why he's not doing well in the polls against Trump, on top of the fact that, he's going against Trump and the cult of personality there and all those things. If you're going to go against Trump, man, you got to come with,
you got to be on
100 honest. Yeah. This doesn't feel honest to me because it's not.
This is why I constantly tell all these Republicans who are clamoring over Ron DeSantis, don't put all your eggs in this basket yet. Don't underestimate him yet. He could very easily be paid off. He could very easily be corruptible if he isn't already. He is carefully crafting his answer so he doesn't rock the boat, because he came out against the war and then he got that backlash and then he changed his tune. And he's already right now still trying to prevent any type of backlash.
Right. Yeah. Going back to his original comments, my guess would be when he came out with that first very populist message that sounded more akin to what me and you say.
Yeah.
Someone behind the scenes was like, hey, buddy,
no.
There's a lot of contributions from the military industrial complex coming your way. Maybe you should change your tune there.
And if you're the anti-establishment guy, then, why is there a they or them behind the scenes going, whoa.
And maybe I'm not even going to say that he's not going to be anti-establishment to some extent, but perhaps he's understood campaign-wise, if I'm going to win to beat Trump, I'm going to have to make deals with a bunch of people that are unsavory. Well, buddy, that's not enough for me. I'm sorry. Those people are beyond reproach anymore. It's either we're in this thing, it seems like we're going to get out of DeSantis is the first term of Trump's presidency all over again. I'm going to go in there, I'm going to work with the bad people and try and win them to our side and make things. No, that's over. That's never happening. I want revenge and burn the place down to the ground, metaphorically speaking here. So working with them and whatever it is here that DeSantis is doing, I'm sorry, it's not going to work, and it's not working. We saw the poll numbers, right? He's polling.
Yeah, and he's pro-war in China. So
yeah, right, exactly.
At the end of the day,
a little cherry on top.
He's still pro-war.
Yeah, if actually he and Trump got on a debate stage, perhaps we could actually see if there's any difference between him and Trump on China, because Trump's not great on China either. Mm-hmm. I do think it's more in Trump's bones to try and avoid conflict where possible, right? So it would be interesting to try and see if there's any daylight between the two of them in that regard. So any other thoughts before we move on to the next candidate?
Up next, we had a couple of comments for DeSantis, so I'm good.
All right. So up next is former Vice President Mike Pence. We made a clip of this one too on our social media. Don't forget to go follow us there. But this is probably the most watched clip of the entire weekend. This is the most viral run. So we'll see what this is on Ukraine.
Talk about putting your foot in your mouth. Oh my God. Play the clip.
Along the way, the Biden administration has been slow in providing military support. Make no mistake about this. We promised them 33 Abrams tanks in January. I heard again 2 weeks ago in Ukraine, they still don't have them. We've been telling them we'll train their F-16 pilots, but now they're saying maybe January we'll let somebody transfer some jets.
I'm sorry, Mr. Vice President, have you, I know you're running for president. You are distressed that the Ukrainians don't have enough American tanks. Every city in the United States has become much worse over the past 3 years.
Yeah.
Drive around. There's not one city that's gotten better in the United States. And it's visible. Our economy has degraded. The suicide rate has jumped. Public filth and disorder and crime have exponentially increased. And yet, your concern is that the Ukrainians, a country most people can't find on a map, who've received tens of billions of U.S. tax dollars, don't have enough tanks. I think it's a fair question to ask, like, where's the concern for the United States in that?
Well, it's not my concern. Tucker, I've heard that routine from you before, but that's not my concern. I'm running for president of the United States because I think this country's in a lot of trouble. I think
that's not my concern.
That's not my concern. Now,
I'm not concerned about what's going on in America, but I'm running for president of the United States because this country's in trouble. But the country itself is not my concern.
So I thought I picked a longer clip here, but I guess I accidentally saved the first one. I thought to give Mike Pence. That looks really bad, right? Him saying that's not my concern. Now, in the spirit of fairness. So let's go back to real quick. Sorry, let me backtrack. In reality, that looks really bad, and his campaign is now over, right? Mm-hmm. Like, because people have clipped this the way this is clipped, and that's what people are going to see. That's not my concern. In response to Tucker saying things at home are bad, and you're over here talking about some faraway place, and you're prioritizing that over things here at home. And he says that's not my concern. Now, in reality, this is really bad. His campaign is over. But what he actually meant was, that's not my concern, meaning like he thinks he's not concerned about that because later on he says we could walk and chew gum at the same time. So he doesn't mean like it's not my concern that America, things are bad in the cities. Mm-hmm. He means that's not my concern. Like he's not concerned because he thinks we can fix both problems at the same time.
Right.
And him fixing both problems is we're going to actually increase how much stuff we give Ukraine to fight the war. So we're going to do more war.
Well, you know, again,
I'm saying this is his approach. This is his stance. We're going to do more war with Ukraine, and then we're also going to fix all the problems at home here at the same time. Remember, he doesn't actually give you any. It doesn't give you any like explanation as to how he's going to do that. And I will counter. No, we cannot do both. Right? No. We are in tremendous amounts of debt. They have been doing both for the past, since fucking the war in Afghanistan. This is what they've been doing. They've been doing both, right? Which is we're going to do the war and we're going to make sure that we fix the border and take care of people at home and the vets. No, we can't do both. We can't have an empire and we can't have a republic at home where things are good from everyone. You can only have one or the other. There cannot be both. So that is wrong outright. I outright completely reject his fucking bogus position. What are you gonna say?
Very well put. Coming from a guy that's polling at what, like 2% to begin with.
Yes, yeah.
This is just outright ridiculous. And look, the mask came off on him. We know he's part of the establishment. He's by being concerned that Ukraine isn't getting. He's not concerned where our tax money's going. He's concerned that the tanks haven't arrived yet.
He's concerned we're not sending enough of it.
Right. Maybe because we didn't pay for any tanks. We just laundered the money and just said we were going to give them tanks. He's concerned about all the wrong things. And I got to say, I'm glad that his campaign's over now because of this. You're just a dirty shill that played the GOP. You played America as the VP. You played Trump in the final hours. There's no one standing behind you, pal. So you're not my concern.
Just the deep state or whoever's encouraged him to do this, because I don't understand how he thinks he's going to actually have a shot in hell to win. Like, it's absolutely pointless. He's polling at almost 0%.
on top of it too, he's in a very, as a, let's forget the establishment here, as a GOP candidate who was the former Vice President Trump, he can't in any way, shape, or form take on the America First approach, because that's Trump's thing. And then he's gonna, if he follows suit with America First, there, then he's saying Trump's right, or that this method is correct. So there's no way he could admit to that either.
Yeah, I think he's running. He's been told to run, essentially, or been encouraged to run by some deep state actors, like, as just his running is trying to be like, well, there are some, like, it's trying to subvert. They're trying to subvert some MAGA Trump stuff, right? Like, look, even his vice president disagrees with him now, and is running against with him. See how bad he must be. He's also spoken a lot about January 6th, right? So I've called him before, just he's the January 6th candidate, right? Like, I'm the guy who did the right thing on January 6th because Trump did the wrong thing and they tried to overthrow the government. Like, he's now just kind of towing every deep state agenda position, but with like a sprinkle of your old-fashioned conservatism on top of it. And then
it ain't working.
I'm an alternative to the Democrats. Yay. We're going to do more war. I'm an alternative. That's the alternative. So that's what you're getting with Mike Pence. You're getting more war and just empty platitudes again. At least Ron DeSantis, like, gave you a molecule of something, right? At least he said a couple of things we would agree with. We just said that he was kind of obfuscating what his actual position is. At least he said a couple of things we agree with.
He's going to fix the border in Mexico,
Right, exactly. All right, so we'll move on to the next topic, and this man is coming up in the ranks like a hurricane, and his name is Vivek Ramaswamy. We've talked a little bit about
What's this guy's background?
He is a really.
You said he was a billionaire?
Yeah, he's like a billionaire. He's an entrepreneur. I think he started some pharmaceutical company. I listened to him a little bit. Yeah, fair enough. But there's still going to be medicine in the world. Like, that doesn't mean that everyone who gets into the pharmaceutical world is bad. I know he started a company that's kind of like the inverse of BlackRock. Like, he hates ESG, so he wants to make like a capital investment firm that doesn't use ESG to try and, like,
for companies that offend people. That's amazing.
Just like to again, like, he wants to be a capital investment person, but like the way that you should actually do capital investment, which is like by merit and by actual investment. Like, hey, wow, this new thing you invented looks really good. You need money to get a startup. Okay, I will invest in you. Not like, are you a communist? Then I'm going to invest in you. So that's kind of where he's made his bones. He actually was just on Clint Russell's podcast, Liberty Lockdown, and he's trying to make the pitch as to why libertarians should support him. Thought it was a really good episode, so you guys should check that out. Here he's going to talk. Tucker's going to ask him about January 6th. So we're going to shift gears a little bit and hear what he has to say.
It's pretty scary. So let's just go through the list. Another thing you can't say is that maybe January 6th, while appalling on one level, maybe it was not an insurrection.
So let me talk about. I haven't talked about this much in the campaign. I'll be very honest with you. You want to know what caused January 6th? There's such a temptation to say that there's one man whose name is unspeakable. We can't.
No, first of all, it's QAnon. It's QAnon.
It's QAnon. You want to know what caused January 6th? Is pervasive censorship in this country in the lead up to January 6th. You tell people in this country they cannot speak. That is when they scream. You tell people they cannot scream. That is when they tear things down. And so the reality is, we were told that you could not question where the virus came from when we all knew it came from a lab in Wuhan, which now they admit. We were told that you could not send a private message to someone on the eve of an election that Hunter Biden's laptop story was actually a true story worth considering before an election. You were systematically suppressed. So think about this. You told you had to be locked down, had to take a vaccine that was mandated and forced down your throat, stay locked down in your home while Antifa and BLM roam and burn the streets of this country. So that's the lead up of one full year of telling people you have to shut up, sit down, and do as you're told. And then you tell them, okay, there's an election where you didn't get the information that you needed, such as the Hunter Biden laptop story being real and suppressed. That's what caused January 6th, is a cycle of censorship in this country. And until we look ourselves in the mirror and admit truth on that, we will not move forward as a country. And I think that's the real cause. And we're not, and I'm sorry to say this, Tucker, but I think until we reckon with that reality, I worry that that is the beginning of, it's a friendly parley compared to what's to come, unless we step up and.
Yeah, so he's going to go on to continue there and basically say, like, hey, if we don't, fix some of these disagreements we have, like, we're essentially heading towards some sort of conflict with each other here.
Yeah,
in the United States, which me and you agree with. I
very
really liked
well
it.
put.
I
Very
will.
well put.
Yeah, well, let's go. Give me your. I've spoken about him before, so let me hear what you think.
I think this guy. Last you told me he was pulling at what, like 18% or whatever.
Something like that. Yeah, he's moving up. He's in third place.
I think he's definitely going to be moving up the ranks. I think if he stays on this path, he has a very good chance of going the distance. Do I think he's going to beat out Trump? Let's revisit that, come, a year from now, a year and a half from now. But there's something you said that has always remained true, that eventually truth will be profitable. And I think this guy is on that path.
Yeah.
I think that's the path he's on. I think that's the path he should stay on. And I think it's going to be profitable for him.
That's ironic, because did you know that his campaign slogan is truth?
No.
So that's his campaign slogan, right? So, and he is a businessman. He's an entrepreneur. He knows how to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
So perhaps he has figured out that truth will be profitable in the future.
Yeah.
I think he's really talented. He's really smart. I've heard him talk a lot lately. He is an intellectual. Like, he understands, like, human beings' emotions and psychology and society, like how all those things are intertwined. That's kind of like what he's talking about here with January 6th, how, like, you frustrated people to the point where like emotions boil over and they do stupid shit. Now, there's definitely more to the story around January 6th, but that is definitely, I think, a part of what happened on that day.
And it's such a simple thing too, because I remember, I've referred to this episode where Tim Pool was talking about a medium action that ends up getting a large response. That's what the government and the establishment has been doing to the American people. They lied to us about where COVID came from. They lied to us about the effectiveness of the vaccine. They lied to us about the Hunter Biden laptop story. They suppressed free speech. And it was all these. Now, in retrospect, these are huge infringements and attack on us. But no one, minus vaccinations and stuff, was really physically harmed. So it's like your little sister in the back seat poking you, and then you finally get enough and you wind up and you crack her in the face. You gave the large response. That's what the deep state and the establishment wants out of MAGA people. We're going to prod you until you finally blow up, and then we get to go, look how crazy they are. They're the bad guys.
We get to pass the national strategy for countering domestic terrorism, right, and further encroach on all your civil liberties. Like, you see, folks, where the game is going here? I think Vivek is excellent at understanding that. He would be invaluable in some extent in a Trump administration. And if somehow Trump does become, I don't see Vivek winning, beating out Trump. I really just don't see that happening.
Yeah, no.
I think this is Trump's thing. He's going to be the nominee. I hope that he has made a case to be in some very important role in the Trump administration. And if you are serious about draining the swamp this time and all that stuff, like, my biggest criticism of Trump, and a lot of criticism of him, has been like his people he chooses suck. Like, he chose swamp monsters the first time. John Bolton and Will Barr, right? Like, all these guys who suck. Lindsey Graham, even right now, like, he's still fucking campaigning with Lindsey Graham. Like, let's choose some good people. Like, Vivek is one of those guys who should be in the administration. Put him in some role that's like super critical, or he's going to take that big brain of his and fucking figure out how do we actually drain the swamp and do it effectively. So I hope that he actually does get in to some extent with Trump and they work together. He hasn't gone at Trump like the dirty way DeSantis has. Trump has actually been complimentary of him a couple times. So I think that actually is even in the realm of possibility that he could be used to some extent. Let's move on to Governor Asa Hutchinson. Most people probably don't even know that this guy is even part of the fold.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Did you know?
I've heard the name. I've seen this guy before, but I couldn't tell you a single.
Yeah.
You know,
I know he's in the fold because he has like a
taken.
unique name. That's the only reason why I know that he's even in the fold. Asa. I've never heard that before.
He's got to be polling at like -2%.
Yeah. So they're going to talk about child transitioning. So like the woke shit we're going to talk about here on this topic.
Face. And I believe in a limited role of government. And so, you know, if I don't think that California ought to be able to tell parents, you need to have gender affirming care for the children. The government should not do that. And in the same way, let's keep the government out of it unless it's that extreme case, and let's let parents guide the children. I stand with parents.
So, and amen for standing with parents, and I think everyone in the room would agree with that. But the reason I asked the question was not to bring up a sore subject, which I know that it is, but to ask if in the subsequent 2 years, you had said that you drew the line at castration of physical altercation of a child's body because it's permanent. But in the subsequent 2 years, I think we've learned that hormone therapy for prepubescent children is permanent. It changes the bone structure, it changes the brain of the child. A lot of people believe, including me, that it destroys the child's life, but it is permanent. It's not reversible. So given that and the standard you just articulated, do you have different feelings? I mean, this is a permanent change we are making to a child. Why would we allow that if we don't allow surgery?
Well, permanent change is one issue, but also hormonal treatment is a different issue and can be a different issue. And whenever you look at the bill that I vetoed, there was not any grandfather clause in there. Again, I respect legislators that have a different view, but I think independently, I think of the parents, I think of the Constitution, and actually the court, if you read the decision of the federal judge that struck it down as unconstitutional, really sided with parents as well.
But how is it treatment? I guess that's my question. If you have a child who says, who's born a boy, I want to become a girl, he hasn't gone through puberty yet, he's say 10. Is it treatment to prevent him from going through the natural process of adolescence? How is that treatment? It seems not like treatment. It seems like something else.
Well, you have...
That's a great point Tucker just made right there. How is it treatment to prevent someone from going through a natural process? That's not treatment.
Well, because we're trying to change nature. Of the people who are in favor of this do not operate in reality.
Yeah.
So if there's any aspect of the natural human existence that they could change, they're going after it. You know what I mean? Like if you could poop your peas and peas your poops, they would rearrange all downtown for you.
Remake the nature of man, right? Which is again, I think I've said it on the podcast before. Like I've been researching the Soviet Union a lot and the inception, and there was a very they thought they were going to remake the nature of man, like the communist man. They were going to remake the nature. So just keep that in mind. There are a lot of parallels.
Think of Klaus Schwab. You'll live in the pods, you'll eat the bugs. Now, last I heard, he said we're not going to need clothes because humans will have uniforms. You'll have digital currency and stuff. Think of it like you're not going to be living a natural life anymore that humans have lived for a millennia. Whether this is natural or whether cavemen living in caves were natural, that's a different debate. But here we are once again, we are going to change everything about everyone.
Yeah. All right, let's wrap up his little clip here. We've got 20 seconds left.
Tucker, I hope that we'll be able to talk about some issues. I know that...
Well, this is one of the biggest issues in the country, and I think every person in this room would agree that it is a central issue because these are children who are being altered permanently, and you can defend that alteration, that change, if you like, but there's really no debate about whether or not it's permanent. And so I think it's fair to ask you in a calm, rational, and I very much hope polite way, why you would support that.
Tucker, can we shift to a topic that I don't suck on, please?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's essentially what he was asking.
This is questions like that, even though they would never give Joe Biden a question like that, is why the DNC doesn't want to have debates.
Right. Yeah.
It would be damning it'd be damning to anybody with a functioning brain in between their ears.
Yep. So Asa Hutchinson's position essentially for child transitioning is that we can't do surgery, but we could give them the drugs as long as the parents support the the decision. So it's a parents' rights issue. I'm going to disagree. There are a lot of things that we do not allow children to do in the real world. They can't get tattoos. They can't drive cars. They can't have sex with adults. Right? These are not parents' rights issues. We don't say, like, we people will try and be like, oh, well, you're a libertarian. Like, shouldn't you just live and let live? No, not on children. There are certain things that are just common sense rules we don't allow them to do. Taking drugs to change your gender, which could damage them in the future, that should be a no. That should be against the law. In Ancapistan, that's going to probably be against the law because most people are going to have the common sense to be like, no, we're a private society here. There's going to be rules. We don't need the government to enforce them, but this is going to be one of the rules. Kids do not get to take drugs to fuck with them and harm them in the long run. Go ahead. What do you think? Hang on real quick. I'm sorry, real quick. But like, that's what he's running on as the Republican.
Yeah. Good luck, pal. So I agree with him on, the parents need to have the say, because one thing, despite what he is saying, parents should have control over is disgusting enough. But what's really disgusting is, the idea that there are people in favor of, like, if you don't support your child's, sexual orientation, the government's going to come and take your kids away, and you'll no longer be a parent. They'll be a child of the state. That is wildly absurd. There's people who are in favor of putting these children on these hormone blockers behind their parents' back. That is wildly disgusting. But to further your point, how some things should just be a no, I think the next question that comes up with somebody who supports this like him is, what do we do about these parents then? Because you can't be logically a sane parent if you're truly promoting this. Like, your kid's 16, 17 on the cusp of 18, and, they're on the cusp of making that decision as an adult. Cool. We got some leeway because, you know what I'm saying? But like, if you're the parent of a 5-year-old and like you're gun-ho about giving your child puberty blockers and hormone medication.
And I'll interject here real quick. You could keep going, but maybe not the medicine part is not that prevalent at that young of age. But I've seen videos of people, who have boys on TikTok and they're turning them into girls, right? Yeah. Like literally, like parents who are proud of this. So that's where this begins. Now, like, think how that's going to naturally progress. It's going to eventually then progress to the drugs at 10, 14, 15, whatever it is. Go ahead.
So that's my point. Like, when do we start looking at the parents who promote this type of stuff? When do we like almost say like this is child abuse?
It is child abuse, right? And it should be against the law. And if you do it to your child, you should go to jail.
Yeah.
And in my end version of Ancapistan, parents
straight
who
to jail
abuse their children will be going to jail. It doesn't matter that I'm not abusing my children or that it's somebody else's parents. Like, I'm not going to have this mentality of like, well, it's not my problem, it's their problem. Yeah. You know what I mean? No. Like, what kind of evil person sees child abuse or learns of child abuse happening in the world and is like, you know what? Nah, no laws against that. I'm not even saying like we could actually even do anything to prevent every instance of child abuse that occurs, right? Like, if it's happening in the confines of someone's private home and I literally have no idea it's going on, there's nothing. But that doesn't mean it shouldn't be against the rules, right? Like, don't we have standards to live by at some fucking extent?
No standards. No standards.
He has zero chance. This is one, like he said, he tried to pivot away to something else that he doesn't suck on, right? But this is a critical issue in the country right now that everyone knows about. So for you to be like taking the Democrat position on the issue, like maybe a Democrat light position on it, why are you even running? I don't get it. Maybe he's just there to try and, again, like another plant to try and like further the Overton window in that direction or some shit. Maybe you know what I mean? Like maybe he's there to try and like make that case to Republican voters or something.
Yeah, it's strange to even really see a large pool for the GOP primaries because one, Trump's got like a 50-point lead over everyone. Two, I mean, anybody that's sensical can basically see it's going to be Trump versus Biden or Trump versus whoever the Democrats.
Yeah, like if we were betting men, we want to take the safe bet.
Yeah.
That's the bet we'd take.
And I always said, like, DeSantis is a young man. All he has to do to be the presidential nominee is wait another 4 years. You know what I'm saying? Like Trump's out of office. Whatever happens in America happens, whether he's DeSantis is controlled opposition or not. Just play the long game, and I think you have an incredible chance to become president. So it's strange to me to see people running against Trump and then have political views like this.
That suck.
Like you develop your campaign team, you have a campaign manager, you have a speech writer, you sit down and you decide you have people and assistants decide what your political viewpoints and your stances on topics are going to be. And then they offer you this crap.
Right.
You have no shot then.
Yeah.
You have no shot now.
Right. So it's interesting to think why. Like they always ask the why.
How is this team coming up with like this? This is the solution.
Right.
No.
Yeah. So I do think it is good though that people are running. I get again the gamesmanship aspect that like Trump's probably going to win, but I think Trump deserves to be challenged on certain things because certain things he sucked at. Right. So like people running is a good thing because they can then challenge him on his shortcomings and perhaps make him better. That's what Vivek is doing. Right. But that's not what some of these other guys are doing. So it's a good thing, in my opinion, that people are running and there's some of the space. But then again, this also points back to like Trump should take part in these things because a little challenge is good for you. And then you can make your case to everybody else. So we'll move on to the next candidate, which is we got two more, Nikki Haley, and then we'll wrap it up with Tim Scott. So we're going to go with Nikki Haley. And again, she is asked about who blew up the Nord Stream pipeline.
United Nations. There were two things our enemies never wanted us to have. They never wanted us to be energy independent, and they never wanted us to have a strong military. We have to always have both of those things.
Well, speaking of energy in the military, who blew up the Nord Stream pipeline?
I mean, I don't know.
I'm not claiming you did it.
No.
I'm just kidding. No, I don't know. I mean,
that's what I'm saying. Do you know who did it?
Seems pretty obvious. It was backed by the Biden administration, I would say. I mean, I think all the evidence suggests that, but I wasn't there.
Just for 1 second. I kind of feel like that was an oh shit moment for her, right? Because like everybody in that room is on Tucker's side right now. They want her to say the Biden administration. She could say the Biden administration, and she'll probably get a couple of more votes her way. But behind the scenes, they're going to shoot her in the face.
Isn't she going to be running against the Biden administration?
Yeah.
So we'll keep playing the clip, but how come she can't make that point? Right? Like, think about that, folks. On top of the fact that it's just funny, Tucker is a funny dude. How come? It's a great question. How come you're the Republican? Aren't you running against Biden? Everyone, we did an episode on this. We read the Seymour Hersh story. Right? Like, it's pretty obvious that it was them, right? Like, they blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. And that is an attack. Actually, that's an attack on NATO because that's property of Germany. This looks bad on Biden. But for some reason, one of the people who's running as a Republican, the only woman I might add too, so the diversity hire here in the group, she can't make a point that makes Biden look bad for some reason. Let's continue.
You can't talk about those who are in charge.
But I mean, that seems like a huge step. This is the largest industrial sabotage in history, sent more carbon in the atmosphere than any act ever. And like, there's weirdly no curiosity about who did it. And I think that's strange. What do you think?
There's a lot of things that are strange with the Biden administration. This is the first one.
I guess what I'm really saying is if you were running against the Biden administration, to do something like that and shaft our closest allies in the world, which would be Western Europe, and deprive them of the energy they need to run their manufacturing sector and destroy their economy, which it is in the process of doing, like, that's a major sin to have done something like that. You just betrayed our allies, and no one on the right is accusing the Bidens of what they clearly did. So I don't know why.
Well, no one is accusing the Bidens aren't being accountable on anything. I mean, you look at the cocaine that was just found in there. I mean, that's a whole nother issue.
Whose was that?
The cocaine. What did we say in the last episode? That the cocaine was becoming a distraction. So who blew up the Nord Stream pipeline? Cocaine blew it up. That's who did. And now if you're a fucking idiot, again, it's funny. The whole thing is funny, the cocaine thing. But if you're a fucking idiot, you'll let her off the hook here and pivot into whose cocaine was it, right? Instead of the actual real question is who blew up a fucking pipeline in Europe and you know, furthers the agenda of war here against a nuclear fucking armed superpower. Let's continue.
So let me tell you this. No.
Oh, go ahead. No one's watching. Just what do you think?
No, this is really important because I have been into that area of the White House. This is not,
it's party time.
As much as they want to say, and don't forget the pot that they just said was found there last year, right? So everything that they're saying is that hundreds of people went through this area. No, I've been to that area. It is the most secure area anywhere because this is where I, on the National Security Council, with other members of national security, met with the president. You discussed the most secure things. I know the area where the locker is. People don't just go in and out of there. It is either the president, the vice president, cabinet, cabinet members, or deputy directors. Nobody else is going in there. There is some staff, but it's immediate I couldn't take any staff but my deputy. The president would take his chief of staff, very limited. So for them to say they don't know who this was, don't tell me there's no cameras in there. There are absolutely cameras in there. So I will tell you, I strongly believe this is a cover-up for either Hunter or someone very close to the president, and they don't want to say who it is. But the problem I have is now your answer is, oh, this isn't a big deal because, by the way, there was marijuana twice last year. Why didn't you do anything about that? Like, who has time to go into the national security skiff, open the locker, and put drugs inside? Like, that's a bigger problem because if you've got somebody doing cocaine, deciding on national security, that's what I'm worried about.
Well, and it shows, I would say.
I totally agree.
So that, we seem to be closer to nuclear war than any time in my life.
Add some coke to it.
So, like, how could, I guess I'm a little.
All right, that's the end of that clip. I will criticize Tucker a little bit here. He didn't follow up as he did for most of the other candidates and really press.
That was a poor response all around by all parties.
I guess because he's just having fun a bit. So who blew up the Nord Stream pipeline? Cocaine blew it up. She said a whole lot of stuff there without saying nothing, essentially. Right? She didn't answer the question at all. She again. There was a reason why I chose Ukraine here as the dominant topic in all these candidates. It's because, like, it's the only one where you're going to see where there's any difference between them all. And, like, it's just interesting. I hope my conservative friends who watch the show, like, realize, like, why is it war? Why is war the one where they can't disagree on? Why is there a uniparty specifically wrong? When it comes to cocaine in the White House or the border, like, we could have those fights, but war, we can never have that fight. They always, or they tap dance around it and obfuscate whatever it is they're trying to say. Any other thoughts on Nikki Haley there?
No, that was a poor response all around.
Yeah. All right. Last up here is going to be Tim Scott, who is the token black guy, I guess, in this field. And he is also going to be asked about the war in Ukraine. He was the first person to go in this forum, and man, Tucker came right out of the gate and went after him on it. So let's hear what he had to say.
You know, the Third World War very quickly. So why not force a peace?
How would you do that?
Well, you could tell Ukraine, and they are a client state of the United States, without American backing.
Aren't you running for president, Tim Scott? Why are you asking Tucker Carlson?
Exactly what went through my head.
How do I, get a peace in Ukraine?
Kind of know Ukraine. We're literally paying the salaries of their bureaucrats. We want you to sit down, as they tried to do, but were stopped by our government, and stop this war. And reach a peace as one does, where both sides, concede some of their interests. Like, why wouldn't that be in our interest to do that?
I think the faster we get to peace, the better off we are. What we don't want to do, from my perspective, is allow ourselves to ask for a premature peace that cannot be achieved as the alliances continue to come together. To the extent that we can find our path out of this situation.
Pause. We're worried about not obtaining a premature peace while the alliances come together. Bro, that's NATO. The alliances are together. That's it. We're done on that front. This is a problem because NATO wants Ukraine to become part of NATO and be on the border of Russia. The alliance is over. We could. There's no I don't see it as premature peace.
What a crazy term, premature peace. Like that
it's a negative. It's a negative.
It's a bad thing, right? Like we want to make sure that there's a little bit more time where human beings blow each other up, which we don't want that to stop too soon. That would be premature because we're waiting for the alliance to come together, like you said. Right.
So now the stars and the planets need to line up before we could sit down for peace.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's how we get peace, by the way, by not having peace.
Yep, that's cocaine and the stars aligning. Yep.
The better off we are.
So what's the point at which we'll know that we've achieved our goal? And I say that within the context of having watched 20 years of occupation in Afghanistan, where nobody could answer the question, what's the point?
Yes.
And no one in Congress ever asked that question, amazingly. So what is the specific goal here?
Yeah, so I would say that the objective should be for Zelensky and Ukraine to be able to achieve victory by maintaining as much of their territory as they possibly can, and then seeing the resources that we've deployed, along with our Western alliances, achieving the peace that I believe comes when you get these two folks to sit down and have a conversation that allows them to determine where those lines will be drawn for the next 100 years.
Okay.
All right. I guess that's something.
I still don't like it, though. I mean, he still wants a return on investment of, the equipment that we sent over there. And then after that, then we're going to sit down and draw battle lines. So is Ukraine still going to lose land here? Is Russia going to advance? Or are we just going to say, well, if Russia advances, then war is still on?
Right. First of all, he doesn't even deliver the line confidently. Like, he looks really bad. Like, physically here, right? Like, he looks uncomfortable. He doesn't know what to say. Why? Because he knows it's unpopular, right? God bless him for the best thing that's happened to conservative movement in this country is they've become primarily anti-war. So when you're out there and people could smell shit and you're trying to sell them a pro-war thing, it's like blood in the water with sharks, right? Yeah. People know. So he looks uncomfortable trying to explain that. But then, like, what? Of course, when they sit down, they're going to have to decide, like, because that's what it's really going to come down to. Like, again, what part of Ukraine is going to remain with, Ukraine, and what part is going to remain with Russia. So at least he understands that that's part of the discussion that's going to be had. But how is it? Let's just do that now. Yeah. Right? Like, why is
he wants objectives A, B, and C to happen before
exactly.
That.
Like, are you saying? So what he's saying is, no, wait, we could do that, but first, more people have to die before we could get to that. And then we'll do that later on. Perhaps when enough people have died that Ukraine has taken another 10 yards in the other direction, then we could sit down and be like, okay, we could do this now.
Yeah, when all the military contractors get their nut, then we could sit down.
Maybe that is. Yeah, they just want to blow a fat fucking load over the whole situation. And there's a couple guys who they've been edging themselves for almost 2 years now. Yep. So, man, but when they blow it, I don't know. Putin might think it's a nuclear fucking attack of his own merit.
Maybe.
Yeah. So that's everybody, man. I don't know. Any final thoughts on the whole roundup there of everybody?
I mean, I could see why the people that are polling under 5%, under 2% are polling so low. And I could see why the people who are rising through the ranks are rising through the ranks. I think DeSantis has a lot to worry about from both sides with Trump in front of him. And how do you properly say Vivek from behind?
From behind, yep.
So DeSantis is really going to, need to nut up or shut up. We're going to, once again, my theory is correct. We're going to find out if he is establishment or not very quickly once all this, gets into motion. But it's pretty clear to me, and I think it's pretty clear to all our viewers of why people are polling the way they are.
Yeah. So,
and I don't even see any outside of Vivek. I don't see any shining star that's, going to come with this big come from behind victory. You know what I'm saying? I think the pool is very shallow, to be honest.
So my prediction will be by the end, Vivek will be in second place and Trump will win. DeSantis will probably be in third or below. Yeah. I think DeSantis has damaged his political career tremendously. Mm-hmm. His campaign has been awful. His positions have been awful. Coming from someone who liked him a lot during the COVID thing, I thought he was the best governor. Right?
Well, he's DeSantis is going to get the GOP NPCs.
Right.
That's who he's going to get. Oh, he did great for Florida. Yeah. I'm not going to listen to anything he has to say, and he's not Trump. Boom, there's my vote.
So I think so, or like the neocon wing of things. I think there's still very valuable things that DeSantis talks about and does here and there. And I'd like to see a competition, an actual competition between him and Trump, because that could be like productive between the two. But I don't think I think DeSantis has done some serious damage to his credibility in the future. Right now,
and so did Mike Pence.
Yeah, well, Mike Pence is over. It'll be interesting to see in a few years, like where DeSantis is, and if he can, like let's say in 2028, if he's going to decide to run again, like what that looks like. If the Trump people, like say he's the best, for lack of a better word, right? At the time, like, and he's the Trump people, are they going to like still keep that grudge against him that many years later? If I don't know, the option is
maybe
like
we'll vote Libertarian.
Right? Maybe that one. Yes, I hope the Libertarian Party is listening to that. That's a great time to fucking get Dave to run for president or something like that, right?
I should have been involved in politics. Like I said, the best thing for DeSantis would have been to just wait. Don't even bother challenging Trump.
The best thing for DeSantis would have been to hire you as his campaign manager.
Yeah.
All right, let's end it here with the tweets of the week. Captain's got nothing. I got 3, and they're somewhat applicable to what we were just talking about. Somewhat. The first one is from the United Nations Women account. We must dismantle stereotypes about gender identity, gender expression, and gender roles that are underpinned by patriarchal society norms. Social norms. On International Non-Binary Peoples Day, let's take time to reflect and learn. #non-binary day. And then there's a picture. It says gender identity. Each person's deeply felt internal and individual experience of gender, which may or may not correspond with the sex they were assigned at birth or the gender attributed to them by society. What do you got to say?
What am I going to say? What can I say? There's one little special word in that definition of gender identity. Each person's display felt internally and individually. It's where we are now deciphering definitions or gender based on what you feel. I feel tired, so I identify as tired. Just
subjectivity. It's a subjective world view that they want to encourage.
And I don't care if somebody calls themselves non-binary. Cool, you're a non-binary person. Get your ass to work, make your paycheck, pay your taxes, be a good human being. Don't rob me. Don't assault people. Don't kill. Don't attack children. Be non-binary all you want, but integrate into society. That's,
Sure. I don't care either if someone wants to identify as non-binary. I do care if the United Nations official position, however, is to foment or encourage subjectivity in the world.
Yeah.
Like, you want to say that a lot of this, trans stuff, like we've even been exhausted about talking about this stuff before, the gender trans thing or whatever, like we have, just because it's exhausting. But like the United Nations is promoting.
Yeah, but I mean, the United
Nations,
global elitist group. So
right. So is there perhaps a reason why we should oppose these things at the end of the day, right? Like, it's not a crazy conspiracy theory, or people want to be like, oh, like maybe you shouldn't waste that much time on it. No, we should waste some time on it, right? Because the literal United Nations is down for the whole thing. The globalist agenda of the world. They've been awful on a lot of things over the years, right? They're here pushing that message. So that was an interesting one. I'm gonna move on to the next one, and this one is by our good friend Joe Biden. Oh, where is it? Oh no, let's see. There was a community note on this, and it seems to have gone away. Oh well, but I'll read it anyway. I remember what it was. Anyway, so it's President Biden. So there was a community note on this. So he says, 1 year after its launch, our administration's 988 suicide and crisis hotline has helped 5 million Americans when they needed it most. There was a community note on there that said that the 988 suicide hotline was launched during the Trump administration.
Yeah, I could see the top two comments over here.
Community notes is funny sometimes. Like, it's there, but sometimes it doesn't work. Like, they're still definitely ironing out the glitches in the system. So yeah, Sticks and Hammers saying it there. Yeah, so there was like a big community note there. It's like Trump signed the 988 into law, not you. But you're over here trying to spin it as it's something that you did.
Maybe if America wasn't in such decline, 5 million Americans wouldn't feel like they need to kill themselves.
Perhaps, right? Perhaps if they weren't encouraging a denial of objective reality and convincing people that however you feel, that's what you really are. Right? Like, and to be honest with you, I'm being tongue in cheek, but like, data has shown that like that stuff does tend to make people like suicidal when they get older and they've done some irreversible
because I mean
thing to themselves.
You go through a whole portion of your life, and everybody bows down to how you feel. Oh, this is your experience, blah blah blah. And then you go to college and you get even indoctrinated further. And now you're all upset because you can't go work at the corporation store because they don't hire people with purple hair. They don't care that you feel like somebody infringed upon your rights. They want you there at 8 o'clock in the morning. They don't care if you identify as tired. Get to work, and it's this big shock to the system when these people who live in a fairy tale world end up in reality.
It is definitely, but that's still good that's at least happening to some extent. And that's a merit-based system. So hopefully we encourage that going forward. So last tweet of the week, I started off by kind of defending Trump, and now we're going to attack Trump. But I'm not going to attack him. Dave Smith is going to attack him. He says, while the entire MAGA world is rightfully celebrating Tucker Carlson ending the political career of Mike Pence, you guys should really give some thought to the fact that this guy was the man Trump picked to be his VP. I think that's an excellent point. That's exactly what we were saying before.
Don't disagree. Yeah.
Trump's our biggest criticism, probably yours too, is like who he chooses to be on his team.
Yeah, he's going to need to choose better people second time around. 2, I'm going to get conspiratorial. Was he just that new to politics and that naive and didn't know that these people were swamp monsters? Or was this a QAnon 5D chess move where he knew these people were evil and he put them out there so he could document the evil, and when it all comes crashing down, he's got a big old receipt? But if he does that, then isn't he kind of complacent in
how many people
the destruction of America?
Also, how many people got harmed by that? The whole vaccine regime, everything that came of that afterwards. I also think people are going to make that point. Right? Or people going to get upset that perhaps you challenge Trump on this, but I don't know. Like, how do you hold somebody accountable by making these points? Right? Like, I hope Trump does do good, and he's learned his lesson, and he was naive at the beginning, but now, and to his credit, I think he has said, like, we're going in this time and we're just basically firing everybody and whatever. Good. Actually do that this time, please, and pick the right people. If we sit around and fucking hold the guy's hand and make excuses for him at every turn, then he's not going to do that.
It's no better than,
or maybe he still will do that, but it's like less likely. Like the point of holding people accountable is to hold them accountable so then they do the right thing. Even if you're like, I'm trying to help you. Take my advice and do these things, and you will win. You will win.
Yeah, we can't allow the swamp to be drained and then replaced with a new swamp.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Or just change what swamp monsters are in charge.
Yeah.
Not a winning strategy.
No.
So that's our episode. I think we'll wrap it up.
Exactly, my friend.
Yeah. Sign us off, buddy.
All right, Doom Nation. That's been another episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys learned something. As always, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Keep those likes and comments and subscribes coming. Our Instagram, our YouTube's been doing very well. We're very appreciative. Thank you so much, Doom Nation. So until next time, adios, guys.